Thank you for joining us today, everyone. We have newly re-elected Premier of Saskatchewan, Scott Moe. Premier will have a brief opening statement, and then we'll have time for questions. We'll ask reporters to go by one question, one follow-up. Premier?
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and I will keep my opening remarks very brief here today. I think I said most of what I wanted to say last night up in Saskatoon. Once again, I do want to take the opportunity, though, to thank the people of Saskatchewan for electing a Saskatchewan Party government for a fourth term. And I want to thank everyone who took the time to vote, whether you supported this party or someone else. Thank you for participating in our democratic system. As I said last night, we are going to get to work right away. You may not see as much of me for the next few days. I have some things that we are going to do. I will be meeting with our new caucus. I'll be putting together a new cabinet, and we will be starting to plan precisely what is going to go in our speech from the throne for this fall, as well as a fall session that we will be planning. Our priorities will be the same priorities as our campaign, the same priorities that Saskatchewan people voted for. We will be keeping the campaign commitments that we made. We will be working towards a strong economic recovery here in the province, and we will continue to work to make life more affordable for everyone. And of course, we're going to continue to manage our way through the pandemic, and we're going to continue working with Dr. Shahab in efforts to control the spread of COVID-19 and keeping our family members safe. Obviously, the higher recent case numbers are of concern, and we talked about this on the campaign. But I still believe that by following the public health orders that are in place and the guidelines, we can get those numbers back under control, back on track here in Saskatchewan without reverting to widespread lockdowns of our communities and the economy. That said, we will be monitoring the case numbers closely and working with Dr. Shahab and his office about any additional action that may be required. So once again, I'll just say thank you to everyone in the province for what they are doing. The vast majority are doing exactly what they need to be doing to curb the spread of COVID-19. As I said, we'll be getting back to work right away to earn your trust that you have placed in this Saskatchewan Party government. We will get to work right away to ensure that we can keep the campaign commitments that we had put forward and get to work immediately on building a stronger province of Saskatchewan. So with that, I'd be pleased to take any questions that may be here.
Thank you, Premier. We'll take our first question in the room. Arthur?
As part of your speech last night, you appeared to react to the relatively strong showing for the Buffalo Party in about 4 seats where they placed second, and also other seats where they did quite well. I'm wondering, when you said that you share many of their objectives, could you be a bit clearer on what you meant? Which objectives do you share, and more importantly, which ones do you not share?
I think you'll see which objectives that have come from. Well, first of all, you'll see those objectives that we may share in the the coming days, the coming weeks, as we have our conversations with the caucus. We have a few more days before we just determine exactly what the makeup of that caucus is. Last night, I spoke to all people that may have supported our party or may not have supported our party, and I ensured and implored on them that this will be a government that will represent everyone in Saskatchewan, and that includes those that may have supported the party that you mentioned in rural areas of the province and may have some challenges with some of the initiatives that have come from our federal government. We are going to talk to those people. We have been discussing with those people, and we'll ensure that they are represented in the government of Saskatchewan, as others that may have supported the opposition party, the NDP party. We for sure are going to make every effort to be a government for all of the people in the province, and that includes on all parts of the political spectrum. So more to come in the days ahead. Right now, what we are focused on is we're going to finish up some of the counts. I'm sure many candidates will be watching them closely, as I will be. We want to bring our caucus together sooner rather than later, and we have a significant amount of work to do to plan for a fall session here. We'll need to put together a cabinet as well. So a lot of work to do in the days ahead, and we're very focused on putting that together sooner rather than later.
Follow-up, Arthur?
Do you worry at all that by speaking directly to the concerns expressed by voters who supported the Buffalo Party in that way, and it seemed quite transparent to me, that you may be validating that position, and is there something you can tell us to make your position in that regard clearer?
Listen, yeah, there's I'm sure initiatives in many parties that the Saskatchewan Party thinks are things that should be looked at, policy initiatives that should be looked at, but not all of them. There's going to be differences between some of the policy initiatives that we have and that some of the other parties have, regardless of who they are, whether it's a Buffalo Party, whether it's the NDP, or any of the other parties that ran. But they're Saskatchewan people, and the concerns and the issues that they have, like the concerns and issues that all Saskatchewan have, are valid. And we will represent, to the best of our ability, all of the people of the province. This particular, initiative, did very well in a number of seats. There is, I can't remember the last time that an NDP party finished third in seats across this province, let alone a number of seats. So there is a significant number of people in this province that we are going to work to represent. Yes.
We'll take our next question from the room. Lisa?
If the numbers that are right now hold out, you will have come back with an even stronger mandate, and depending on how the numbers do go, you could have an even higher percentage of the popular vote than the Sask parties had before. What goes through your mind when you see that? What do you think that says about the next 4 years and the voters?
Well, I think with the mandate that we have, personally, I'm happy to see the mandate that we have. I believe that this is a party that does have a plan for a strong future for this province. I believe this is a party that does have the priority of leaving things just a little bit better than we found them, and providing that opportunity for that next generation to really succeed here in the province, succeed like we have over the course of the last few years. But the responsibility that I feel in the mandate that we now have, excuse me, is really strengthens my resolve that we need to continue to be a government for all of the people. When this pandemic began, excuse me, there was a fork in the road really for us as representatives, for all of the MLAs, and we had a meeting with our caucus about how are we going to engage with the people that we represent through a pandemic when we can't gather in groups. I got a frog in my throat, I apologize. And I had asked our caucus members to, at the very early days of this pandemic, to reach out to their constituents through the telephone, through email, however that may be, and to talk to them about the pandemic, the impact that it's having on their family, the impact the impact that it may be having on their work-life balance, their career. And our MLAs started that engagement very early throughout this pandemic. I would say they've been doing it throughout their time as elected members. But we doubled down on our efforts to engage with voters across this province at the very beginning of this pandemic. And I think that was helpful. That was helpful in us being a government that was representing not just people that support this party, like we have, seen, just came through a campaign, but helpful to be a government that is representing the constituents in our constituency and working very hard at that. And when, so when you ask, what does this mandate mean? This mandate means we have a lot of work ahead of us. We have our campaign commitments, yes, that we will deliver on. But we're still in a global pandemic here, dealing with managing that from not only a healthcare perspective, but also from an economic perspective. And I think we're going to bring our caucus together as soon as we are able. And I'm going to repeat those words, is, reach out very quickly as a member of the Legislative Assembly now. Reach out to all of the people that you represent, and let's continue to have that dialogue on, not only how we're dealing with this pandemic, but how we are representing them on multiple fronts. This is a government that is here to represent all of the people of Saskatchewan, and we have to work very hard to, earn the trust that has been placed in us to govern this province and to do it appropriately.
Follow up, Lisa?
In your speech last night, you talked about a strong and independent Saskatchewan. What specifically does that mean? What are you referring to when you say that?
We'll see some of the opportunities that we have for Saskatchewan to exert our autonomy, our independence in the weeks and months ahead. There are people that are discussing this openly. There was discussed openly in this this election campaign. We've talked about this at the government level in the months gone by, and we're likely going to continue talking about it in the weeks ahead. So, we'll just have to wait a little bit to see specifically what those initiatives are going to be, but we will have the caucus discussion. We believe Saskatchewan's best days are ahead of us, and we believe we have opportunities to expand the industries that are creating wealth in our province, and we're going to work very hard to do that. We also believe that Saskatchewan has an opportunity as we find our way through this coronavirus, this pandemic, and as the world does start to economically recover at some point, Saskatchewan most certainly has the products that the world is going to need to recover. The food, the fuel, the fertilizer, most certainly can come from Saskatchewan. They're high quality. I've spoken to that many times. They're affordable. They're competitively priced, and they're some of the most sustainable products in the world. And as the world looks at their supply chains, they should look at Saskatchewan to source their energy, their oil, their potash, their agri-food products, manufactured goods, mine products throughout our north, clean uranium for clean nuclear power. Saskatchewan is poised to do very, very well as the global recovery starts at some point in the future, and we're going to do everything that we can to place Saskatchewan in a position to succeed.
We'll take our next question from the phone line.
We have Murray Mandrick from the Leader Post.
Good afternoon, Mr. Premier, and of course, congratulations on last night's win. I do not understand why you cannot unequivocally follow up to Arthur and Lisa's question, why you cannot unequivocally state that you oppose a party whose end goal takes us closer to separatism. You made the independent comment right after suggesting there were sentiments of the Buffalo Party that you agreed with. Are those sentiments some form of independence? Can you state unequivocally that you do not support that, and perhaps not give them the oxygen that they're getting out of this by basically saying you support some of their goals?
No, I don't support Saskatchewan separating from the nation of Canada. Most certainly not. Saskatchewan is a strong and independent province, but we also are a part of the nation of Canada. We are one of 10 provinces and 3 territories. We're very proud of being a contributing member to the nation of Canada. We have been for over a decade now. And we, in fairness, hope to continue to be into the future. We hope to continue to have a strong, vibrant economy here in Saskatchewan that is providing opportunities for us to not only have careers in our communities, but to attract people to live here and provide that opportunity for our kids to stay here. To have Saskatchewan separating from the nation of Canada doesn't really achieve some of the challenges that we have. Saskatchewan separating from Canada does nothing to help us build a pipeline across this nation to service other Canadians with some of the most sustainable, competitively priced energy in the world. Separating from Canada does nothing to fix some of the other transportation issues that we may have in the way of rail and potash transportation challenges and constrictions that are there. Separation from Canada, most certainly doesn't help us in further addressing some of the sustainability issues, some of the sustainability initiatives that we have in the industries here in the province. So separation from Canada does not achieve, I think, what many people think it would set out to achieve. There is great frustration with a number of initiatives that have come from the current federal government, and in fairness, we've had issues with multiple federal governments over the course of the many decades in this province. But they are coming to a head and have been coming to a head for some period of time, and we're going to work on a number of those issues to ensure that we are able to expand the economic drivers in our province here in Saskatchewan, the mining, the energy, the agriculture, make sure that we're able to do it, but do it in the way that we have been doing it, in a very sustainable fashion. So there are some other initiatives that I think we can work on to expand Saskatchewan's autonomy and to expand some of our independence when it comes to how we work with the federal government. But separating from the nation, I don't think achieves what many think it would achieve.
Follow up, Murray?
Thank you. Can you better expand on the independence word used now, and especially last night, because it was used in the context, and I realize it was a long night where and you're probably getting tired after a long day in terms of delivering that speech, but it came across as if there were independence notions related to Saskatchewan that you supported. So can you please explain today what your definition of a more independent Saskatchewan would be?
Well, we're going to look, I would just point to some of the changes that we have made in the months gone by. We appointed our own chief firearms commissioner here in the province to rule and to administer the laws, which are federal laws, but we had the opportunity to appoint our own provincial individual to this position, and we took that opportunity. That is one step. We have taken the federal government in the way of what we believe is a wrong-headed initiative in the implementation of the Trudeau carbon tax. We have taken them to the highest court of the land, to the Supreme Court of Canada, to challenge their area or their jurisdiction in what is a shared area of jurisdiction in the environment. When in the days ahead, we will be looking very closely, for example, at another shared area that we have with the federal government, for example, is taxation. And start looking at some of the initiatives that the federal government has in this area, where they collect, where the province collects. I mean, it's no secret the initiatives and the areas that people have been talking about across this nation, not just in Saskatchewan, and we're going to have a very active look at how we can further enhance our independence, further enhance our autonomy, further enhance Saskatchewan to be able to really be taking care of ourselves to the degree that we can, but not separating from the nation of Canada, most certainly.
We'll take our next question with the room. Steph Davis.
Okay. I know you already did touch on COVID, but another day of high cases today, as has been the trend for the past week or so. So I guess what's your message to people who are kind of losing hope in the way that your government is controlling it?
Right. Well, I think we're up 56 cases. We're up a net of 2 today, if I'm not mistaken, and we are high. We're up over 650 active cases here in the province. So that's the highest we have been. There is a number of recoveries that are occurring now as well, but we continue to have some active cases. And I think the message that I would give to the people of the province is we can control the spread of this virus while continuing to have our schools and our workplaces open. We have proven that time and time again. We have had individual regional outbreaks in the past that we have dealt with in a, to quote Dr. Shahab in the meeting I had with him this morning, in a very surgical way to ensure that we are, we are stopping the spread when we have these small outbreaks. What we have here now is in many ways what I had been speaking about, Dr. Shahab had been speaking about over the course of the last few months. With a change in weather, people are coming indoors. We are gathering indoors as opposed to outdoors, and that does increase the opportunity for the spread of this virus. And then we have had a few instances, and rather than just 1 or 2, a number of instances where we have seen up in where I live in the Prince Albert area and surrounding communities, a worship service, and a number of cases, and we're into the secondary and tertiary cases from that outbreak, as well as a number of nightclubs in Saskatoon and a few other minor, I guess none of them are minor, but a few other smaller outbreaks in other areas of the province, one I believe in Yorkton. In many cases, in virtually all of the cases, not 100%, but virtually all of the cases, they can be stemmed back to an organization or a group of people that are either blatantly breaking the public health orders that are in place, or at the very least pushing the compliance to the extreme edges. So the message I would have for the people of the province is this is time for us to reevaluate. This is time for each of us to reevaluate what we're doing each and every day, how we are conducting ourselves, whether or not we are wearing a mask at the appropriate times, ensuring our proper hand hygiene is there. If there are groups of people that are larger than, we all know what the public health orders are, around 15 people in private gatherings, 30, and some areas where you can have a larger presence if they have the ability to to physically distance. But if you find yourself in a situation where the group is larger than what the public health order is, it's incumbent on you to not attend. It's incumbent on you to follow the public health orders that are in place. This is how we are able to, I think I said last night, protect lives and livelihoods here in the province, is by keeping that community transmission as low as we can. 650, we need to come down from that number in the weeks ahead. We're heading in, we came out of Thanksgiving season, we're heading into, before too long, Christmas season, and this would be a very good time for each of us as individuals to pay very close attention to precisely how we are conducting ourselves each and every day.
Follow-up, Steph?
Yeah, kind of shifting a bit, but have you spoken to the candidates who are still waiting on the results from their riding, and if so, I guess what's their mindset right now?
Yeah, the ones that are close, I think you assume. I've spoken to a number of them, reached out to them last night and this morning. The Saskatchewan Party candidates, I would add. I haven't spoken to the candidates from other parties, but listen, I believe there's a count going to happen tomorrow. There'll be tens of thousands of ballots, mail-in ballots that will be counted then, and I think further clarify the situation for many, and then a final count happening, if I'm not mistaken, sometime in early November next week. I've been around the politics for a little while now, and it is hard to change the trajectory. It is hard to turn seats around. But in saying that, there still are tens of thousands of ballots out there. There are some close seats. I've spoken to a number of our candidates, and we're always hopeful. We want to gain a few more, and I know, I'm sure Mr. Miley also is hopeful that he'd be able to gain a few more seats as well. This is a little different than other years, where we don't have this lag effect, at least to this level, where the mail-in ballots are as large as they are. And I think I would just, take the opportunity to give Mr. Boda and his team at Elections Saskatchewan a real thank you for how they conducted this election. They did a great job. People right across the province, they administered the vote, and they did so in a very safe manner. And part of that was the mail-in ballot system, which people really took to this year. And a credit to those that participated in that way, and a credit to Elections Saskatchewan for making it as seamless and as as effective as possible. So that's very good. I think I'd also just take the very selfish opportunity to, and I did this last night, but to thank all of the candidates from all parties across the province. They did a very good job of reaching out to the voters, putting their platforms forward, and they did so safely, and they deserve a lot of credit. Each candidate that ran in this election, I think through them, each of the members of their volunteer team also deserve the same degree of credit. This is a third election that has been run throughout this pandemic, and I think Saskatchewan people can hold their head high. They did a very good job of doing it so safely.
Steph Taylor?
As you put together an agenda for a fall session, a throne speech, are you considering any additional supports for the healthcare system or classroom education, something that a lot of people did talk about on the campaign trail, and likely, cast some ballots perhaps for the NDP that did kind of focus on those two issues? Right.
Well, in the case of healthcare, we did, I believe, before we went on the campaign trail, pass a number of special warrants to ensure that the healthcare system did have the funding that they would be required, to, manage for an unspecified period of time. Listen, our healthcare system is going to be funded here in the province. We're in some unprecedented times, not only from with respect to the support that we're providing with COVID. We're testing, thousands of people daily for COVID-19. If you go back to January of this year, we were testing 0 for COVID. So that whole arm of healthcare is up and running and being funded, and it will continue most certainly to being funded as well. In the case of education, we had put forward a total with federal and provincial funding, as well as the savings within the school divisions, about $155 million, of which we provided the first on-request allotment of those dollars. There's still dollars left there that will be provided, I believe, later this calendar year to the school divisions, again through requests from individual schools and school divisions. So there is more dollars that still remains to be available for the education system, and we're going to ensure that the healthcare system is funded not only from the COVID perspective, but from the broader conversation on on how we are going to put together a plan to ensure that we're able to recoup some lost ground, like many other provinces, virtually all other provinces across the nation, on some of our surgical wait times. We had put, I believe it was $20 million in this budget, $10 million additional in last year's interim. We put an interim payment in that budget to start to advance our surgical initiatives so that we could reduce those wait times. We are faced with a similar challenge here in Saskatchewan as the rest of the nation is. During this COVID period, that has been proved to be very challenging. And it's going to take some investment to reduce those lines in the next number of months.
Do you still intend to reach out and apologize to the Sons of Joanne Baylog, which you intended, which you specified you would do on the campaign trail, and if so, when?
Yes, I do, and it'll be a. Listen, as I said on the campaign trail, this will be. This is something that is very, very personal to me. I will be reaching out, and it will be, from my perspective, a private conversation.
And we'll take our next question on the phone line.
We have Colton Prale with Global.
I just want to focus a little more specifically on the timeline for that. When's the plan to reach out? How soon could we see that?
Well, that'll be a timeline and a plan that I will determine on when I reach out. As I said, it'll be a private conversation that includes when.
Follow up.
Second one for you is you talked a lot about we're going to see in the coming days ahead where this party goes. But for you, what's priority item number one? Is it the pandemic recovery with climbing cases? Is it focusing on the economics? What is the biggest mandate in your mind right now?
Well, I think all of the above in general. We do need to, as I said last night, we need to ensure that we are making decisions that are protecting lives and livelihoods in the province, and we have been doing that in Saskatchewan over the course of the last number of months as individuals right across this province. Some of the priorities that I have, are really somewhat operational in the next number of days. I'm going to, meet with our House leadership team and to map out what a fall session looks like. We're going to have a caucus meeting as soon as we're able, as soon as we determine with a little more certainty exactly, who is going to be successful. There's a vote count that needs to happen tomorrow of the majority of the mail-in ballots. We're going to have to appoint a cabinet. And so we're, going to be putting some thought into exactly what that is going to look like as well. When we get into the House, I think we indicated in this campaign that, Bill 1 was going to be the home renovation tax credit. That will be Bill 1 when we open the House here this fall. And there may be some other pieces of legislation that, are pertinent to some of the campaign commitments that we had made. So, first and foremost, we're going to be some operational things need to happen. I need to contact the Lieutenant Governor, for example, and indicate to him that we are going to form a majority government here in the province, and then move forward with the plans for caucus meetings, cabinet, ultimately assembly, and then putting together the plans for the fall session and what bills actually would go into that session. So.
Adam?
Going back to the pandemic, what, in your conversation with Dr. Shahab, what is the threshold? What can we expect? I know there aren't going to be widespread restrictions, you've said that, but this is clearly across the province in different regions. We get multiple alerts of COVID exposures, gas bars, restaurants, gyms, people still asking for masks in certain scenarios. What are you prepared to do, and where does this have to go before we see some restrictions?
I think you're going to see, and Dr. Shahab, I believe, will be out to speak about this in the next day or two. But I think what you're going to see is, like we have all along when we had an outbreak in the north, for example, and we now have had a number of outbreaks for different reasons here in the province. But with respect to the demographics of the infection rate, we're seeing an increasing infections among youth. Young adolescents or young adults. Some of that is related to some specific nightclubs. You're going to see Dr. Shahab, I think, address some of that concern as early as this week, not in a broad-based manner, but in a very surgical manner, so that we can ensure that we are keeping people safe here in the province by addressing where the issues are, as opposed to a broad-based blanket approach. With respect to masking, we've been clear on masking all along. If you can't create that distance, you should wear a mask.
What would you say to criticism that early on in the pandemic, you mentioned the north, you cut off, there were checkpoints there, Now we have more cases, the highest ever of active cases, and as you said, it's around the province. Yet we have only seen one change the public health restrictions of private gatherings.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned a lot of these problems have started from public businesses. Why not come down harder on them, even temporarily?
Well, I think you know, some of the fines that have been administered are pretty severe, and I think you see the vast majority. Let's use nightclubs as an example. The vast majority of nightclubs are adhering to the public health advice because they don't want to be that club that you know is a place for spreading this virus in the community, and they don't want the fine. I believe they're administered, if I'm not mistaken, $12,000 or $14,000 fines. That's not a small amount of money. I think how we reacted to, let's use the La Loche area as an example, how we worked with the local community and communities in that area to you know, really control the spread. Given what we knew about the spread, how that virus spread, how the virus spreads at that point in time, as we have come through the number of months since then, we do have a better understanding of how this virus spreads. We do have a better understanding of the, you know, the public health guidelines that do help us in curbing or stopping or slowing the spread of that virus. So we don't have to, in my mind, at this point in time, have a broad-based restriction that would come in, for example, on nightclubs, when the vast majority of the nightclubs are following the public health advice. There may be something within those nightclubs where we can you know, further prevent the spread, something that doesn't impact, you know, the business that they are conducting, but does keep their patrons safer. For example, you know, we've all seen the video with respect to the dance floor that was full, and you know, that just isn't on, you know, as we move forward. So I think Dr. Shahab will have, you know, some conversation about this in the next few days. This is one area where we have had some challenges here in the province, and I think you'll see, you know, Dr. Shahab speak specifically to that, and maybe specifically to some initiatives that will, you know, provide for a further opportunity to keep patrons safer in those specific situations, and ensuring that those that are offside with the public health guidelines and advice, you know, are being dealt with swiftly.
Thank you, Premier. That concludes our time for today. Thanks for coming, everyone.